the different kinds of margins and padding. This is very important, guys, because whenever you are going to design any page, whenever you are going to create any text, or when you are going to assign any image and you want to assign to the particular certain place, then definitely the margin and padding is very important. Even though, because you are going to use certain thing on your mobile, then it should be accordingly, the margin should be set. It should not happen that, okay, when you open the application on your uh, Google Chrome or any desktop based browser, that margin will be different, padding will be different. The same way mobile, the layout is going to be not exactly fit. So in that position, you will be face the problem, and then the margin will come into the picture. So it's very important that you should know how the margin we have to define. Once you learn this, then you will be able to understand that where and what margin you are going to define there. Okay, so when we talk about the margin, as I mentioned that in box model, this is the properties 3 and 4. That is, 3 is margin, 4th is padding. So you can see here example what I have displayed here. Let's practice this, then we'll get to know that. So as I mentioned, this is the first demonstration. You can see that all the paragraph, whatever we have defined, it's all joined together. There is no space, there is no margin, there is no padding between these text. When you define the margin, then definitely between each paragraph, the margin will be defined. But padding inside this model, it will be not there. Okay. When you want to define the padding, then you can define the padding. So from the box, what you are making, from there, the padding will be defined for 30 pixel, and including even the margin will be there from the top and left margin. This is actually your margin and padding. Okay. Then why they will cause you the trouble? The question is that how the trouble we are going to receive. You, if you have noticed between the previous, between two paragraph, we have seen that, right? The first and two paragraph, between the paragraph 1 and 2, and between 2 and 3, the same space before the paragraph, as I displayed here. So there is same space here also, there is also there. So this is the place where you will face the issues, right? What will happen after paragraph 3 and so on. So you will be facing the difficulties. This will happen due to the adjoining the vertical margin collapse. It is because it is happening because what vertical margin you have given, that means between the paragraph, due to adjoining, that means joining of that margin is going to be collapsed. Due to that, your all paragraph will be together, and it will give you the that cause, it will cause the design purpose. Okay, you can see here the same thing what I suggested, right? So you can see that between 1 and paragraph 2 there is a no margin there, but the same you can see that I have defined there. So this let's display, then we'll get to know that how you can even collapse the margin between each paragraph also. So first we'll see that margin and padding, then we'll come to the collapse margin section. Okay, so let's come to the code. What we'll do, we'll create same file, we'll save as, or anywhere. Okay, we'll use this one only, file, save as. If you want to create new, and I'll just take till here, file, new. Okay, before doing that, please save it, then you can save the file name. So I'm going to use margin and padding. I will give the name as PM. Okay, or I give MP, margin and padding dot. So you have to remember that you have to change the save type as a HTML here. Okay, remember this, you should change to the this extension HTML.html, and this, and I have to give MP. Even if you give directly, it will get saved into .html format. So mp.html saved. Okay, so as of now, I don't need any background color. Okay, I'll just close the body section, close your HTML section, save it. So nothing is there in this. We need some paragraph. Let's see that in previous we have so many paragraph. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take this paragraph only. Okay, some lines till here we'll take. Some dummy paragraph we'll take here now. And we'll create 3 different paragraph. Okay, one paragraph, second paragraph, and third paragraph. Save it. Okay, so these are the third paragraph. Let's open our site and we'll see that what result is there. So localhost myweb / mp.html. You can see that it's very simple. We have not defined any border, any CSS style rule. That's why it is appearing simple. You can see that there is a between the paragraph there is a gap. Okay. Now what we'll do? Now we'll define the CSS. So far we were using external CSS. Even you can use embedded CSS if you want. It's totally depend on you. So we'll see the different 3 types of hairstyle sheet. Okay. So sorry, we have to use a style sheet into the style sheet. Okay. And between this we are going to write. So what do we have to use? We have to use paragraph. Okay, so this is the first example. We are going to define the border. Okay, okay, so in border what we want, we need solid, that is the line what we are going to define, that should be solid. We want line width should be 1 point and color should be of the particular line is red. Then I want margin initially as a 0, and same way initially I want padding as a 0. We are not going to define any padding left or anything. Save it. Now this will work. Let's see that what will happen. See, the moment you define for paragraph, because we have only one paragraph here, right? So the style sheet is going to apply on the paragraph, right? So if you use here dot or hash, that means class or ID selector, then you have to define. I'm using only one for the demo purpose. Now you can see that as per the previous, you can see there the margin is 0, the padding is 0, and all the paragraph is getting closed between that, right? This is the first example where your this margin padding is happening. Next, suppose now you want margin, then how margin will be there? So whatever the margin we have used, we'll change margin to the 30. Now refresh. Now you can see that from the top also there is a margin between each paragraph. There is a margin. This is the 30 pixel. If you increase this to 70 pixel, let's see that what will happen. The moment you do that, you can see that the margin is getting okay. So this is actually so 30 pixel. Now next we have, with that we have to define padding also. So we'll define 30 pixel padding. I'll define 30 pixel padding. Okay, let's zoom it. Okay, so now the moment you define, okay, so initially when you are defining, you have what you have observed, when I am giving any other value except 0, it is not taking. You can see that, right? I will give 30. It will not take. You can see that it is same as it is same. Why it is not getting changed? Because now margin you have to give in pixel. So I have to give here pixel. Save it, refresh. Now you can see that the margin from the top we have defined as a 30 pixel. You can see here. The same way when you change, even if you increase now, you can see the difference. That's what I want to show you, that when we are changing, so you can see here the margin and side by side this is also getting shifted. So actually I have zoomed here, you can see this. Okay. Okay, so you can see here, this is the design. Now let's change it as per our demo, 30 pixel, and I want now padding also 30. Again, if you give 30, it will not work. You have to give always pixel, or you can give the percentage when you're defining height and width. You can see now. Between that previous, you have seen that between the paragraph, there was no margin and padding, but now in each paragraph, the margin and padding is there. This is actually your margin and padding. And due to this only, when you have seen the previous first example, the vertical alignment was getting collapsed, and due to that we used to get the some issues. Okay. Now what we'll do, we want to collapse the margin. Okay. So now collapsing margin. You can see here the first one I have defined here 90 pixel. Okay, that means I'm using this entire section. The first section what we are using here, this section is a division tag. Okay, so in the division tag we are defining two different paragraph. Okay, you can see here the code also it is there. First division tag, then you have second division tag, again we are defining two paragraph. Okay, now what we want, you want some margin, that is the margin from top. Okay, that 90 pixel. Okay, and your another margin we are defining here 20 pixel. So this 20 pixel, it will be, again it will take between these two paragraph. Okay, now what will happen, I have defined the margin for the division tag, but the next moment we define the margin and padding for the margin for this paragraph. You can see that it is the top main margin it is going to fix before the division, but inside the paragraph whatever the margin you are defining, it will take as a 51. It is not going to take as a 90. Okay, so if you overlap margin did not collapse, then the margin space of 2, that is this is 2, okay, would be 180 pixel. That means 90 plus 90, it should be 180, or 90 pixel from the bottom margin, from this margin should be 90 pixel for the first division. Okay, plus 90 pixel for the top margin, that means for the second division. And while margin 3 and 4, you can see here the 3, that means bottom margin. Okay, and that is your fourth margin between the paragraph. Fifth margin between the paragraph would be 100 pixel. Okay, so between 50 plus 50, 100 is there. Okay, so this will be taken care. If you want, it's the same way, just you practice this code, you will get to know. Then how it is going to work? Okay, the CSS what you are using, when the vertical margin is happening, it is getting collapsed, then how it is going to be defined? So when the vertical margin of two element touches, okay, the largest margin value of the element will be displayed. So what is the largest? We have defined 90. So that first margin 90 will be taken care. Okay, in the case of vertical, you can see here in this vertical margin. Okay, you can see here this is a vertical margin. So largest, what is that? 90 or 20 or 90 or 50. So first vertical highest is 90. So it will take 90. Then the smallest margin value will be collapsed to 0. If it is smallest margin is there, that will become to the collapse to 0. And if you have any horizontal margin on the other hand, but it will never collapse. It will be the remain same. It is not going to collapse. So only in the case of vertical margin, you are going to apply this rule, and this will work to collapsing the margin. To complicate matters, whatever we have seen for the complication for the collapsing the margin, there are large number of special cases in which you can adjoin vertical margin that do not collapse. There are many cases are there. It totally depends. That's what always I repeat, that it's totally depend on your practical approach, how much you are going to do the practice on that. Now after the collapse, now we have the next model properties, that is your height, that is called as box. Next is it's all comes into the box model properties, and that is the height and width. So this is the fifth and sixth are there, height and width. Now how you can define the height and width? When you talk about the height and width, okay, the height property, both height and width properties, only you are going to specify when you have the certain size you are going to define for your content area. Whatever the element you define, either image or you want some division or paragraph, or in that something you want to define something with the height and width, then you are going to implement the height and width cases. Perhaps the only rival for collapsing margin is troubling our students. Obviously, when this is going to be collapse margin, we will be getting trouble, right? That means how this will be resolved. And in box dimension, we'll be having a number of potential issues, because this box model, because why it is saying that in box model we have number of potential issues, because you can see here I'm using this box. Take only the presentation, what you are visible to you, that we suppose I want to fit an image on the right hand side. So when you are going to define this, the image, you have to define what is the exact padding, you have to define exactly what is the margin from top. That it's very complicated. That means you have to, every times you have to change the code, you have to execute, you have to see that okay, it is getting fixed or not. If you know the dimension of your screen, and generally the developers, they know that, and they will define accordingly. So obviously you have to practice twice, thrice, then you will get to know that okay, yes, this is the way we can define the height and width and margin also. What is the potential problems in the height and width? Only block level element and non-text inline element. What are those? That is the images. Okay, for example, that means image is what? It's a, you are going to define image in the box only, right? The image will come only into this area, only your image will be defined, right? Or non-text inline element, if anything is a moving circular, that is also into the box some area. Then your height and width, that you have to specify for that. There you will be facing the issue. And we know very well when you are going to define any image, so default width of and the height of element will be the actual size of content. You have seen that whenever you use the image tag or any image you give into the source, what will happen? What is the size of actual image? That is the, if size is 1000 pixel by 400 pixel, height and width, that means width into height, it will take completely. There the problem is there. So you have to reduce the size and then you have to display. So by default, that is the problem. For text, this is determined by the font size and font face. As I mentioned here, we will be having the some special their inline element, like you have a text, right? You want the font size, by default there is a font size is like take 12, okay? But I want to change this, I want this to be bigger, right? I want 16 font size. I want to change the font face, right? So these things you are going to change into that, okay? So this is very important that you should aware about these height and width problems. Okay, and already I mentioned for the image, the height and width of actual image in the pixel will determine into the box dimension. That means you have to define the height and width, and then you have to use those dimensions. The second problem what we have, since your height and width, when you use that, okay, so which will be going to refer your content area. That means I am defining, this is my content area. So this content, what I am using, this is into the content area. Okay, by default, the total size of element is equal to not only the content area. That means the size of this is not only to the content area. Also, you will be defining some padding, some border, some margin. That is actually your height and width. It's not like that only height and width only will define what I have given in the paragraph. When you are designing the page, definitely you are going to give some margin between that. Definitely you are going to give some border size. Okay, definitely you are going to give some margin from here also, padding also. So this all will be calculated, and then only your actual content area size is going to define. But generally people, what they will do, the developers, that means the beginners level, we will not calculate that and simply will define. So that's why our design issue we generally get. Okay, so these are the things are there that you have to consider. Okay, you can see the example over here. Okay, then you will more it get clear to you. You can see here I am using a division tag, that is the CSS. See here, this is the box model. Okay, when you are defining the box model, this is actually your, this from this dotted line to this here, this is your default section. But generally when you want paragraph, what you will do, will define paragraph from here. Then you are going to consider, because this complete size you have to calculate. Complete, this is your content area, and you have to calculate the total height, or you can say total width of this, and accordingly total height. So when you are defining the complete width, I want my content should be displayed from here. Okay, this black box. Okay, I want to display from here. Then what should be your height, what should be your width, what should be your margin, what should be your padding? That is very important. Okay, how you are going to calculate, see here the calculation will be there. So this calculation, you can see here the actual width of complete this section, that is the complete this portion from dotted line. So this is the 10 pixel. Okay, plus your 2 pixel, that means you are giving this border size, right? You have given this border also. Obviously there will be the border width, right? I'm defining, you can see in the CSS also we have defined. So this is 2 point, that is plus 2. I have given margin from here, that means padding from here, that is again 2. Okay, now you are defining actual width, where from, in which content area your element will be displayed. So this is the complete 200 pixel section. So I'll take 200 plus again 5, because again margin are there, again 2 plus 10. So this is total, when you calculate it, with 234 pixel is there. Okay, okay, that is the for the width. The same way when you are going to calculate for the height, the same way you are going to calculate. So in height, what will happen? Your actual, this all will be remain same, because you are using the margin the same, but only this is going to matter. That means width, as a place of width we have to change height, so 10. So that is the 134 pixel, that is the actually. Okay, this how we define actually by default. So this here the complication, we face the issues. So what we will do, you generally will use as a box sizing. Here we have used as a content box. I'm going to use now as a border box. Okay, the moment if you define the CSS different properties, that is the border box, what will happen? You can see that your pixel value getting changed here. The actual width, true element width and height will be 220 and 120. This is actual. So it will calculate, it will not consider your this width of your box also. It take complete, that means 10 plus 200 plus 10. Okay, so it will become, so your 2 plus 5, that is this padding, plus 2 border width, it will ignore here, and then it will take in care for the box model. This is very important. You should know how to calculate for the height and width margin. Next example, the same way, you can see here, I'm defining some CSS. So when you define any text by default, you can see that it will take completely width. The full width is going to take in care. By default, this is the default property. Now I want the text should be represented into the vertical way, right? The vertical margin should be there. Then how you are going to do? Then you have to define in the CSS rule how much width you need for the content area. So this is your content area. In this content area, I'm going to define. So I'll define width is equal to 200, and how much height you want? That height will be 100 pixels. So within this, the content area is going to be element. But what will happen? You can see here, I have only marked between this bracket, right? That means because I have given, you have so many text, right? But the moment you give 100 pixel, what is the actual width till 100 pixel? It is going to display only that portion. Remaining it will get hidden. That is there into this style. Next, you have something called overlay property. Okay, overflow. Sorry. In CSS, when you are going to use overflow property control, so what happens to the content that is too big to fit in the area? As I said, image or any other content you have too big and you cannot fit into the particular content area. It is going out of area. Then how you are going to do? Then your overflow property is going to control that. Okay, this overflow property will follow certain rules. Value will be there and certain rules also will be there. The first value will be there visible. That means how much element you want to visible. So by default, when you use this visible property, the overflow will not clipped in that. Okay, that means the entire area will be appear. That means it will be visible to you. It will be rendered into the element. The content render outside the element box. Okay, it will be not clipped. Okay, if you use the properties as hidden, so what happen? This overflow is clipped. That means when you click on that, it will be again. It will display. It will not by default. It will be hidden, and the rest of content will be visible. So only might be you have seen some of the any website where some content will be there like this. Okay, and there will be written as a read more. The moment click read more, maybe that going to be again expand here, right? So that is actually called as your clipping. Okay, so this is overflow, but it's going to be clipped. So the rest of this portion is hidden. Okay, but this portion is only visible the moment you use that one. If you give a scroll, so what happen? If I give the scroll, the overflow will get clipped. So only if height I have given till this, but I have defined till the end. So what happen? There one scroll bar will come, either the horizontal or vertical scroll bar will automatically it will get appear. If you give auto property, then what will happen? It is similar to a scroll only, but it will add only when necessary. Suppose, what is the mean? If you have more width content, then only it will added only for the scroll bar to the right side. If you have more only on the height side, only it will add the control, that property of scrolling for the only top to bottom. Okay, like this way it is there. Okay, so this is your generally overflow property. You can see the example here. I'm defining the first one, overflow visible. That means you can see that the entire area is visible, but only this portion is highlighted only till there. The remaining, when the moment you give overflow hidden, you can see the remaining content, it is not getting appear here. That means it is hidden now. Now I want to display this. Then I will define overflow scroll. The moment you give the scroll, you can see that only the scroll bar from the top. So as I mentioned, if you define the overflow as a scroll, it will define overflow. If you give auto, so you can see that in auto property, you can see here we have a scroll property. When you are defining, you have, it is showing that they scroll for the left to right, but there is no content actually for the left and right. But if you define auto, because we need only width size, so what happened, only to the height side, it is the property is there, remaining it is not there. That is the advantage of using overflow property in CSS. Okay, so hope you understood this. This is very easy. When you do the complete practice, it will give you the exposure that yes, how you are going to enable this thing. Okay. The next, when you talk about the sizing element, so whatever the element you have, you want to define the particular size, either size should be in percentage or either you in some units, then however you want to define, then it is going to be your sizing elements is going to be appear. So now it's either embrace that is a EMS or percentage you are going to use, right? So when you use percentage, the particular, you know that, right? If your image is 100, that means exact size, I want only 10%. So only 10% of the that parent element is going to be appear. So this is the size is relative to the size of the parent element. Okay. When you use EMS, as I mentioned, embrace. Okay. When you use the EMS, the size of box will be relative to the size of text within it. So whatever the text you are defining within that, it will depend on that. Okay. The rationale behind this relative measures, it's all depend on your browser or device that you are going to view it, because you have to write the code for each browser based. Okay, let's see the example here. Might be it is difficult. Okay, so you can see here I have just defined one sample code body. Okay, in class I have given pixel. I've just written some 200 by 50 pixel. Okay, and some percentage. You can see here the how it is going to be appear over here. Okay, we'll see this example and then we'll proceed.